This is an American Zen Center in the town of Jemez Springs, New Mexico. The name of the center is Bodhi Manda. I've been attending meditation retreats here for over 25 years, and I taped this in the spring of 2003. Zen retreats are called Sesshins, and they usually last 7 days. The word Sesshin is made up of two Chinese characters, meaning to bring the mind or heart together, or to concentrate the mind. Mind in Chinese also means heart, or the center of our being. Sessions are silent, and the students are directed by bells, gongs, and by clappers, which here are calling us back to the afternoon sitting. Our teacher is Joshu Sasaki Roshi. He was born in 1907 and came to the United States in 1962 when the Americans were first becoming interested in learning how to do Zen meditation. The tradition he bought is from Myoshinji Temple in Japan, and we follow the conservative style of that school in our chanting and daily session schedule. A Zen friend of mine sent me a series of drawings about Zen monastic life in Japan, published by the University of Hawaii Press. The inscription reads, "The middle of autumn, 1966, drawn by Giei Sato in celebration of the 1100th anniversary of Linchi, the Chan forerunner of Rinzai Zen Buddhism." These drawings, which were made during the last years of Giei Sato's life, recollect his life as an Unsui, an apprentice monk, and it was interesting to compare it with our own American practice. The book opens with a picture of the young monk leaving his father and his family and setting off for the monastery. His father is a priest, and he probably runs the local Buddhist temple, and I gather that in Japan the son is expected to do Zen training to inherit the father's position. We were young too when we started in the 1960s and 1970s. At that time in America, Zen practice was new and strange. We were drawn to it by spiritual unease, by a longing for perfection, and by the promise of enlightenment. Zen meditation was something you could learn. You could practice it and get better at it, and maybe experience Kensho or Satori, whatever that was. It seemed pretty great to us. We wanted to enter and pass through the gateless gate of Zen. The old masters had dangled their hooks. They had written that if you did not pass this barrier and did not cut off the conventional way of thinking, you would be nothing but a ghost clinging to weeds and grasses. There was a great deal of promise and mystery to this ancient and foreign practice, and thinking back on those days, we really didn't understand what we were getting into. In Japan, the young monk is refused entrance into the monastery. He has to remain bowing for 2 days to prove his sincerity. After signing in, he's sent into a room where he's expected to sit alone for 5 days. During this time, he meets daily with a shika, a senior monk in charge of monastery administration. At last, these difficult 7 days of testing are completed, and the young monk is allowed to enter, vowing under the shrine of Manjushri, the guardian of wisdom, not to leave until he has achieved his purpose. He is welcomed warmly by his new brothers and given a place on the Zendo Tan, or platform, which will serve as both his bed and his meditation seat. In America, most of us are laypersons, and we don't do this, but all of us remember our first 7-day session. As a young man of 29 years old, I felt I'd done something extraordinary. I was filled with love for my brothers and sisters who had also endured and supported me. I came home to New York City and had a vivid dream of the universe exploding into beautiful colors, and I got married that same year. Bodhi Manda is in a small town next to the Jemez Pueblo Reservation north of Albuquerque. In a previous life, the place was a Catholic convent and was converted into a Zen center in the 1970s. By this time, near the end of the retreat, I've gotten used to the wake-up bell at 3 a.m. and having only 10 minutes to get up, washed, and robed, and into the Zendo for morning tea. After tea, the Sangha goes to the Dharma hall for the morning service, and I enjoyed seeing the sleepy monk behind the makugyo, the drum. It is, after all, pretty early in the morning. Most American Zen groups use English, but our old teacher thinks that the Catholics made a mistake when they dropped Latin. So we chant in the Japanese pronunciations of the old Chinese characters, which were themselves translated from Sanskrit texts when Buddhism first entered China in the 5th century. At first it is hard to follow the chants, but after a while the group comes together like a choir. We return to the meditation hall or zendo, and after final bows begin sitting in earnest. At first light the han is hit. The rule is that the han is hit when it's light enough to see the lines of your palm. It is also hit at night at dusk, and at the end of the evening sitting, usually at 9 o'clock. The inscription reads, "Time runs quickly, nothing remains. It waits for no person. You should not waste your time." The core activity of the session is seated meditation, or zazen, lots of it. We don't spend much time in Zen practice on philosophical discussion or argument, in fact none at all, but we gather for this week of intensive silence to confront questions of who we are and how to live and how to die. The leader of the zendo is called the Jiki Jitsu. He is in charge of keeping time and discipline in the zendo. And several times a day, he or his assistant patrols the zendo with the kasaku stick, correcting sitting posture and encouraging students who are sleepy or daydreaming. The kasaku is to be given and received in a spirit of generosity. It wakes you up, and it relieves tension in the back and shoulders. But newcomers can feel intimidated, and you don't like to get caught napping. Like my friend Murray once said, it's not pain, it's the humiliation. But when you realize that it's all to help and enliven the atmosphere of the zendo, you get past that feeling. The sittings usually last about 30 minutes and alternate with kihin, or walking meditation. We are instructed to walk in step, close together with our hands in sasho, or folded together over our chest. Kihin is a welcome alternative to seated meditation and brings relief to sore legs and backs. I still experience some pain, especially on the second or third day of a 7-day intensive session like this, but I know what to expect. People who have never meditated often express amazement at how much sitting we do, and for newcomers it is common to feel a sense of physical panic and have fantasies that the timekeeper has fallen asleep. But gradually my muscles adjust, and the pain recedes, sometimes replaced by an amazing feeling of well-being. But often, and even more creative, I pass through a sort of depression or darkness associated with giving up old ways of thinking, a kind of darkness before the dawn. Once a day during Sesshin, our elderly teacher, Joshu Sasaki Roshi, comes to the Dharma Hall for Teisho, or Dharma Talk. Our Sesshin retreats follow Rinzai tradition. Rinzai, or Lin Shi in Chinese, was an important teacher from the Tang Dynasty, known for his abrupt and rough use of the stick and the shout. When it's time to get dressed, put on your clothes. When you must walk, then walk. When you must sit, then sit. Just be your ordinary self in ordinary life, unconcerned in seeking for Buddhahood. When you're tired, lie down. The fool will laugh at you, but the wise man will understand. At the time I filmed this, Joshu Sasaki was 97 years old. He continues to lead about 18 full 7-day sessions a year. Besides his daily teisho, he sees each student face to face 4 times a day in the practice of Sanzen. The Sanzen bell rings during the 2nd or 3rd sitting, calling us to an interview with the Roshi, or venerable teacher. Everyone must go, even if you feel stupid or afraid. And although I've never seen this in America, Giei Sato's drawing expresses how some of us have felt. The Roshi has given each student a koan, a public case that shows truth. A monk asked Master Joshu, "Does this dog have Buddha nature or not?" Joshu said, "Mu." Mu is a Chinese character meaning no or not have, which is a shocking and unexpected response because we are taught that we all have it. Dogs, people, trees, stars. Then what is this Mu? The student holds this question in the back of his consciousness. With each breath, concentrating on the question with all his might, Mu becomes like a burning ball stuck in the belly, which cannot be swallowed or spit up. And waiting here before Sanzen, my heart would sometimes race and my hands sweat. What can I say? What should I do? Often, however, the student has some experience or an idea, and an answer has popped into his mind. Now he thinks, "I've got it." And sure enough, the student enters, and just as sure, the experienced teacher knows immediately where he is at, and summarily dismisses him, often before the student gets a word out. One of my old Zen friends, Dogo, now dead, told me once that he begged, "Please, Roshi, at least give me a hint." The Japanese Zen poet Sengai wrote a poem. Dog, Buddha nature. Don't say he doesn't have it. Don't say Mu. A stiff spring wind has risen, rattling the dry gourds on the eastern wall. While we sit and walk, the cook, or tenzo, and his assistants practice in the kitchen. The role of the cook is an important one, and traditionally this work has always been carried out by teachers settled in the way, and by others who have aroused the bodhisattva spirit within themselves. Working in the kitchen and sitting or walking zazen are not different things. Breakfast is at 7, lunch at 12 noon, and dinner at 5. Three students are appointed as servers or handikans. The meal will be a simple one of cereal, milk, and fruit, but the handikans need to review the meal liturgy and serving procedures so that the meal goes quietly and quickly. As the food is served, the students chant the Heart Sutra. Form is exactly emptiness, emptiness exactly form. Like many of these Buddhist sutras, these phrases felt strange and foreign at first, but over time I realized that they weren't that different from what we recite in church about the Word becoming flesh and dwelling among us. In the Bodhisattva's vow, we recite that our daily food and drink, clothes and protections of life are the warm flesh and blood, the merciful incarnation of Buddha. Who can be ungrateful or not respectful, even to senseless things, not to speak of men? Seconds are served, and after the last serving, we pass the saba bowl to collect each student's offering to the hungry ghosts, those restless and unhappy spirits that cling to the weeds and grasses of the world. In the koan collection, The Gateless Gate, a monk asked the great master Joshu, "I have just entered the monastery. Please teach me." Joshu said, "Have you eaten?" "Yes," replied the monk. Joshu said, "Wash your bowl." These 3 bowls, spoon and chopsticks, are ours throughout the 7 days, and we will bring them back to our place in the zendo after the meal. The meal is over in about 20 minutes. After lunch, everyone receives a work assignment. During Sesshin, the work period is short, but during weeks when there is no intensive daiseshins, a good part of the day is spent working. "A day of no work is a day of not eating," is a famous statement attributed to Master Hakujo, or Baichang, who established the rules of Zen monastic life in 9th century China that we follow today in America. There is a wonderful story about the young student Baichang on a walk with his master Matsu. They saw a duck fly up from a marsh nearby. "What is that?" asked Master Ma. "Oh, it's a duck, a wild duck," replied the young Baichang. "Where is it?" "It has flown away." Master Ma grabbed Baichang's nose and gave it a terrible twist. Baichang cried out in pain. "Oh!" "There," said Master Ma. "When has it ever flown away?" There is a wonderfully kind and comfortable side to these sessions, too. Once a day we have formal baths. We divide into 3 groups of men or women for a half an hour in the hot springs that Jemez is famous for. It's hard to describe how wonderful it feels on sore legs and backs. The session is drawing to a close. After 7 days, thoughts about self and enlightenment have mostly melted away. It's like you were trying all the time to jump out of your skin and become perfect, only to find that just where you are, even on the treadmill, seeking truth, is just right. I feel love and gratitude for my companions, and my heart swells and breaks like an ocean wave. And to be honest, I still wonder now and then, will the bell ring soon? Through the years, my teacher has become less of a wizard and more of a man who is old and short, and good as most men are. My thoughts are now homeward bound, and I look forward to Sosan, our final interview, as with a grandparent or a friend. The young monk in Giei Sato's drawings is not the same young man who left on his journey to the monastery. We will soon return to our homes and jobs, churches and communities. So what do we bring home? Well, I hope we don't forget our shoes. I've done that before. There is a legend about Bodhidharma, the Indian monk who first brought Zen to China. After he died, the story goes, he was seen walking barefoot back to India, carrying one sandal. When his tomb in China was opened, only a single sandal was found inside. I still ponder over that miraculous question. Why did Bodhidharma come to China? And I wonder, too, who of my Zen friends do these shoes belong to?